here on the continent, it's very much a reflection of the culture. So WhatsApp and Facebook is a form of e-commerce in my opinion, but it's always very much from a relational element, and Sky Garden has been able to tap into that.
E-commerce is a space that is, for the majority of Africa, yet to be discovered. Meaning, with more and more Africans being connected to the internet every single day, there is a huge opportunity to fill that gap. But how can you use this opportunity? How do you build a successful e-commerce startup in Africa? I'm here to find that out. My name is Antonia Lorenz, and you're listening to the Foundality Africa podcast. Our guest on today's episode will not only give us his knowledge on how to become successful in e-commerce, but he will also take us on a journey on how he went from being a university graduate, desperately looking for any job, to the CEO of a startup that secured 1.8 million USD in seed funding. And he will also share his expertise on how to build capable teams. I'm talking about Daniel Maison, co-founder and CEO of the upcoming Kenyan e-commerce platform sky.garden. And he can explain best how it works.
So Sky Garden is essentially an e-commerce platform that also has a marketplace component, but is not just a marketplace. It is 100% tech-based, so there is no warehouse. And essentially what we do is we give merchants that web shop that they can customize.
But before talking about Sky Garden and e-commerce, we will first find out how Daniel got to be the person that he is now. Here is his story.
Yeah, my life before I became an entrepreneur was one where I studied a job that I felt, I would be effective in, which for me is marketing. And once, I got into the job market, I found quite a huge challenge in the sense that, you apply to as many jobs as possible, and I was told, sorry, we need someone with a little bit more experience, and, I kept hitting this brick wall. And in time, I started asking anyone to work for free within the marketing space, just so that I could have something within my CV to use as a reference point.
Yep.
And even that became a challenge.
I asked Daniel how he was able to keep going. He told me about a gleam of hope in one of his most difficult moments, and what this time eventually taught him.
I did get discouraged a lot. My mother was very, very supportive. Mm-hmm. She would give me internet bundles so that I could look for more jobs online. It got to a point where I would go to car parks asking people, hey, I'll work for free. And people think you're asking them for money.
Yeah.
And so they don't even want to hear what you want to say.
Do you think that's also the thing that made you an entrepreneur?
Oh yeah.
Especially
it's
what
almost
you need as an
it's a madness.
Yeah.
It's a madness. That's what I would say. I'll never forget, there was a lady, I walked into an office park one day, and I just showed up at the reception, and I had a couple of CVs printed, and I just said, I will do anything. And I wasn't homeless. I'm grateful, and she looked at me and said, it's almost like she felt sorry for me, but at the same time was encouraged, and she was like, you're gonna make it, man, don't worry. And I really needed that day, because that day I was tired. I was not in a good space, but I needed that. So that part of that madness will also make you take very insane risks, such as quitting a very good job, which is the job I had, to start something that you don't necessarily see, or have in front of you.
During our interview, Daniel struck me with his passion, his hard-working mentality, and most of all, with his humbleness. These traits eventually helped him to get a great opportunity that changed his life. Let's see how he did it.
The CEO of that company was fantastic. He caught me on a day that I wasn't at my best. I think the wear and tear of knocking on a lot of doors and nobody opening it. had caught up with me on that particular day.
Yeah.
Actually, I was in church, and he spotted me and said, "Hey, I've seen you around, but today you seem a little bit low. What's going on?" And he really pressed me for answers, and I finally relented and said, "Hey, man, I'm just trying to find a place where I can be able to get some experience. I'm willing to work for free." He walked away, went into his bag, gave me his business card, and said, "Okay, I'm not gonna pay you if you want to work for free."
So then the journey started.
The journey started there. He put me in the marketing department. The lady there was very, very helpful and she spoke quite highly to him and said, "This guy seems really eager to work," and she said, "Look, if we can, let's have him on as an intern."
Yeah. What do you mean by eager? So what exactly did you do in that job?
Anything and everything. So I just swallowed it up and I kept giving my all, to be honest.
Okay.
I was doing it for my own selfish reasons. I had spent a year, if not more, looking for anything like this, and now that I finally had it, I wasn't going to waste it.
After Daniel started the internship, he made his way up in the company and was given responsibility to expand the company to multiple countries on the continent, starting in Kenya, Daniel's home country. He was living in South Africa at that time, but his heritage certainly wasn't the only reason exactly him was given the opportunity to do that. That really intrigued me because it was a huge opportunity and a lot of responsibility.
This is going to sound like I'm bragging about myself, but you will always know if somebody is eager to grow as a person, not just grow in their job. And
Yeah.
I don't think everyone necessarily at that age, if you're younger than 22, 23,
Yeah.
is that hungry. And I think that's something that set me apart, and I'm grateful for that. Yeah. I would say when you want to be the best version of yourself at any given time, there's nothing that the world can do to hold you back. It can be incredibly discouraging a lot of times, because sometimes you ask yourself, why am I on my feet for 11 hours when I'm making a very ridiculous amount? But when you're doing things for yourself, the right people will notice, and more often times those right people are the ones who will help you grow to the next level. And look, all of us have access to YouTube. All of us have access to a lot of these motivational videos. And
Yeah.
they keep telling you the same one thing: do what the 99% are not doing, which is consistently being the best version of yourself.
Now, at that point in Daniel's life, everything was going well. He had a good job that was also fulfilling. His wife and him were just expecting a baby. But just then, an exciting and very unexpected opportunity came across Daniel's path.
I get this crazy call from my uncle, actually, who happened to be in Copenhagen. And he said he knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who was interested in knowing the Kenyan tech space and wanted to just have a chat about it. And he recommended me. And so it started off as a Skype call with two gentlemen. And let me just say, from the second that call started, there was a pull. We really clicked. I personally saw a massive opportunity in terms of peer-to-peer e-commerce in Eastern Africa. I could see that this is something that could really scale if done right. And man, I was so energized from that call, I couldn't shake it off. And they too, they were too. All this was, things that were on a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
and I went and I remember I did a few user stories and we shared that and we unpacked that and we had another Skype call and probably one more, and then we're like, okay, you know what, let's just meet. So I flew over to Copenhagen, spent about 5, 6 days there. We spent that entire week just whiteboarding, coming up with concepts and how it would work and what are the check. And so I called my wife and just said, hey, I think this is something I want to do. And she's like, okay, man, if you really want to do this, do it.
The concept certainly caught Daniel's attention, and he decided to give up a lot to pursue this chance. But what made him so sure about this? What is Daniel seeing in African e-commerce that others are not seeing yet?
The definition of e-commerce varies from person to person. here on the continent, it's very much a reflection of the culture. So WhatsApp and Facebook is a form of e-commerce, in my opinion. You know, maybe there's no marketplace, or there could be fragments of marketplaces within those spaces, but it's always very much from a relational element. And Sky Garden has been able to tap into that, because essentially you're transforming what would happen if I walked into your shop as Antonia, who sells shirts, and my saying hello to you and looking into you in the eye and looking and feeling this material, and then doing the exchange of money and good, and porting that into a digital space, right? And still having that trust and still having that real-time settlement, etc. So I see that it's something that's going to grow very aggressively. It's going to happen very organically, but in a massive scale. We've got over 5,000 merchants who have all signed up organically, who now are earning money that they wouldn't have earned if Sky Garden wasn't there. Now, imagine putting some real investment behind that. 5,000 can turn into 500,000, can turn into 5 million. That's very exciting, and they're very much there. They're very much there. So that's very exciting for me.
Daniel keeps emphasizing that Sky Garden isn't disrupting, but enhancing the ecosystem of commerce in Africa. And they already had a lot of success and organic growth with their approach. So I asked him, how do you take on such a challenge as a company? And how did they build the solution?
So, number one, before you even start building, make sure you understand what the problem is. So if you really understand what people are already doing, and the only way you can do that is by doing research, then you already set yourself up for success. So at Sky Garden, we spoke to over 2,500 merchants, literally walking the streets of Nairobi, understanding, hey, this is what's working for me, this isn't what works. Understand it, put all that data, and then come up with something that you see, man, this is what we really, the have-to-haves within the platform. Now that you've been able to understand the problem, validate its existence, and then come up with solutions that you again backed up with research.
The following solution is what Sky Garden came up with.
Part of the research when we spoke to those 2,500 merchants was understanding what are the three things we have to have. The first one was trust, the other one was payment, and then the other one was shipping. So those are the three pillars of Sky Garden. Trust is we use an escrow model, meaning we are the trusted third party. The payment, we keep our promise. If a product is picked up from your shop today, you will get your money today, all right? And then the shipping, get the best partners, and those partners will have done, we're not a logistics company. It's not my business to vet hundreds of riders, but there's a company who's already done that. So have an agreement with them, come up with the commercial terms, and then everybody's happy.
So find your spot in the value chain.
Find your spot in the value chain. I think whenever you build something that is a reflection of what the current conditions are, then you're bound to succeed in one way or the other. It might not have the scale that you want, but it will make an impact.
Yeah.
Take time, and once you're able to prove that, then start creating. Don't create and then try and validate.
Mm-hmm. What Daniel told me about understanding the market and the consumer is something that is crucial to building viable products and companies. Almost all entrepreneurs who I interviewed told me exactly this. Understand the problem and the person you are building the solution for, then make something that will make their life better. They will want to spend money on that. In this case, merchants are paying a commission to Sky Garden. In return, they get their own online shop, including payment and shipping services. But how exactly does this make their life better? What problem is Sky Garden solving for them that they are willing to pay money for? What I learned, it has something to do with a very important topic, job creation.
I shared earlier, job creation is something very close to my heart.
Yeah.
I know that pain. And in all honesty, I won't deny the fact that I have what is considered to be a very privileged upbringing compared to most Africans. Not a lot of people have been blessed to go to other countries. And so if I struggled, with the level of education that I have, with the level of exposure that I've had, you can imagine what that looks like for somebody else. And it would be very irresponsible of me to say that everybody can do it if you just work hard. Not, it's never that simple. But that doesn't mean that you should not be, the change that you want to be in whatever sphere of influence that you have. So by virtue of it all being tech-based, all you need is a mobile phone. That's it. You don't even need money to join. So say you are a tailor, or you make furniture, or you have certain products that you just want to get rid of. All of a sudden, you don't necessarily have to have a physical shop. You don't need to get a stall or a business, which would require money and time.
Yep.
All you need is now, a phone. You take photos of that, and then you share those links on social media. If somebody actually sees those products, then, they would place an order and we would deliver. You get paid. That, in my view, is job creation, because you've earned money that you didn't necessarily have before. One of the greatest compliments we've ever had, I personally had from a merchant, was that because of you, I don't necessarily need to pay rent anymore.
But a company needs more than just a good model and product. It especially needs a well-working team. But everyone who has ever built a team before knows achieving this is very hard. Next up, listen and learn. In this part of the show, we ask the founders about practical advice in the topic they are most profound in. This time, how to build capable teams. Daniel has set up multiple teams all over Africa. In his earlier days, when he was employed, and also as CEO at Sky.garden. He told us all about his best and worst experiences, and his most important learnings along the way.
In my last career, it's very much a corporate setting. And corporate and startup are two very different ways of working. Corporate, there's some element of surety. You're looking for an exact skill to deliver certain things. And I'll be very honest, I was pretty young within my own management career. So, you're really looking for personality, and you're looking for someone who can be able to do a certain job, right? Now, in a startup, particularly a startup of which, you're very much responsible in building a culture from scratch. Coming up with that was its own adventure. So it was very great, and I'm really so thankful for my co-founders that we came up with a blueprint of the values. What values did we want to have? So we thought about how would sky.garden look like in 5 years? How would the energy be? What would people be able to do, say, interact, etc.? And then now work in reverse and say, these are the sort of personality traits. Yeah. And you will feel that once that vision is clear. I always think of it as it sounds weird, but it's like a recipe. If you're making the perfect stew or soup or meal, every single ingredient has to complement everything else. And of course, equipping that everybody who comes in is also set up to start adding into that, because the team right now is about, close to 30 strong. You need to make sure that you enable those other people to be definers of that culture. And I'm very grateful that for all the departments, like we have a customer service team, they are the ones who do the preliminary interviews, because they'll be working with those new people, new hires. And so they're the ones who sort of, do it. They form their own committee and their own panel. And, they do the initial interviews. And then, if that person goes through, then they can meet, the senior management team. And what I'm very proud is that now everybody is a custodian of the spirit that we have. It's not just CEO or top management. It's not this corporate thing. It's power from the ground up, if that makes sense. And it's a really powerful thing, and equipping those guys. So same experience that I got in my last company. When you come in, you get to know everyone and you get to see what the business is. And I'll be honest, our onboarding process has gone from really bad to, could be better, to not so bad, to, hey, we're in the right direction, So as you can hear, it's been a lot of learning also
Yeah.
for me.
Since you learn from your mistakes, I asked Daniel about his worst experiences while building teams.
Now, number one is obviously for any startup is runway, financial, because the more people you have, then the more people you have to pay, and the more pressure is on you as an entrepreneur to make sure you pay those people on time. But it's very layered. So of course there's the monetary element, number one, but also in terms of things like gender. For the longest time, our tech team was, all our developers were male. And our CTO, James Moy, he lectures in a place called Akira Chicks, where they only serve female developers. And he got so much flack within the tech ecosystem of, hey man, you do this and you advocate for this, but within your main role, but the reality was simply because every time we put up job posts, we could never have anyone sign up. And, things have to change and things are changing. I see it being in the tech space. It's just that we all wish it could change in a much faster pace than we currently see. So I think part of that is also making sure that you have instruments and structures in place. Like for us, we only take in terms of our internship, it's only ladies that we take in, and that's a conscious effort, to again make sure that we're being change drivers in this regard. And then of course, letting people go. That's also something nobody wants to talk about. So if you feel somebody's not enhancing this or the spirit, being bold enough to say, hey, I don't think this is really working out, because energy is also very contagious, and you want to have good,
Definitely.
Yeah, good vibes.
But again, building teams is really hard. How do you even get there?
Number one, remove your ego. I think the best way, especially as per that cohort that you've mentioned, people who already have co-founders, or even if they don't, those who are looking for co-founders or who already have existing ones, just make sure that these are people who, you can learn from and who you can be able to give something to.
Yep.
And know your strengths and accept, your limitations, and have really open communication. Co-founding or co-founders it's quite a balance. It's almost like a professional marriage, It actually is. You get to see the good and the bad sides of everybody, and you can't pretend for so long. So make sure that the people that you're investing this time with, because it means you're going to invest your money and you're going to invest a great deal of your time and also a great deal of your emotional energy, So, make sure it's people that you want to do this for the long haul. And even when things go south, you can always look back and say, I would do it all again with the same people, So be as open-minded as possible. Be willing to learn from others. Don't, especially for people who view themselves in, if you're an entrepreneur, you're already a leader in your own right, honestly. That's a distinctive quality that not everybody possesses. So trust in you, believe in you. Don't be your own naysayer. The world is very good at throwing sticks and stones at you, but don't be that person for yourself. And nobody can ascribe a value for you. Only you know that, right? And if you have that idea, if you dream that idea, then nobody can be able to execute it better than you. So trust in that, and then get people who also believe in that vision, and together you will make it.
I hope you learned as much about building teams as I did. Next, I was really interested in where Sky Garden is going. It's certainly on a great path, but regardless of their team and progress, what are the projections and what is Daniel's dream?
You talked about, now it's 5,000 members, becoming
Soon.
becoming 500,000.
Yeah.
When do you plan to do that?
So we've never done any marketing towards merchant acquisition. We've literally just started fast. I don't know if you saw any of our billboards, but everything has been very much organic, because it's taken us 3 years to really learn and get a great formula that works. So now we are actually raising our A round. So we'll be raising $5 million by June 2020, this year. And then we really want to start putting together a lot of marketing towards merchants and vendors.
Yeah.
So everything has been organic. It's taken some of the biggest e-commerce players, I don't have to mention names, very long to get the sort of numbers that we've had. And for me, my biggest dream personally as Daniel is that I really wanted to hear how a merchant pitches Sky Garden to another merchant, and it's already happened. It's happened 5,000 times. So now I want to see what happens when we put our voice out there.
How do you design those media campaigns?
We have a very cool marketing team. That's again having the best co-founders possible. It's a reflection of our truth. We needed to be vulnerable. So, some of our listeners probably don't have an idea about this, but it's all text. We don't have any images. So we literally came up with our colors, which is green and black. Essentially, we just said, this is a big billboard from a small Kenyan brand. We hope it works. And we've actually been listed on Brilliant Ads as of last week, and we're very proud of that. And, because we have a very cool personality in the team. We value humor, we value vulnerability, we value, if my CMO and co-founder Isaac this morning said in the elevator, is like, somebody was complimenting the billboards and said, if it doesn't make you nervous, then it's not worth it. And I think that's powerful. It made us really nervous, but we stuck to our hearts, and now it's giving us the traction we wanted. And nobody can sell you better than you.
Yeah, they're fun.
Thank you.
If you want to take a look at Sky Garden's billboards, you can check out their social media pages. Now, Sky Garden is only one little part of the chain that will determine Africa's future. I asked Daniel about his vision for Africa, and it is much bigger than himself or his company. He also has advice on what everyone can do to add to it.
That's a very personal question, because I've had a lot of thoughts about it. I want to see an Africa that is standing on its own feet. I don't, in the next 20 years, I don't want Africa to be synonymous with international aid, to be, that proverbial image of people in deserts and flies in eyes, and, and the thing is, that is a true reflection of what happens out there, but I think a lot of the issues that we have today are us being, it's a bold statement, but I would say it. It's an issue of us not wanting harder what it is that we want our leaders to create. We have accepted mediocrity. We are an incredibly resilient, resourceful, hardworking, intelligent, entrepreneurial people across the continent. North, south, east, west, everywhere you go. But if you look at what has happened post-independence, it is not a reflection of those people. We have people who have been, in power for many years and have nothing to show for it. We have governments and political parties that literally play merry-go-round, and and I think it's high time that we start holding these people accountable. I would really like us collectively to be the change that we want to become, and it starts from home. That thing of charity begins at home is not just a cool saying; it is real. The way you treat the same way you treat your child or your parent is, it's how you should treat a complete stranger, honestly. And that's something I'm personally learning on a daily basis. And when you work on yourself, and if we're all working on ourselves, then we'll all grow, and our leadership will be reflective of that. A lot of change can and will happen if we're all putting the best foot forward, one day at a time, one step at a time. And I am incredibly optimistic. And it's not a blind faith, it is a genuine faith. I see it every day. I see people taking charge and actually calling, the systems out in terms of what it is that they're not happy, and doing that constructively, not just throwing stones and blocking roads. I see it in the sense of people wanting to take charge of their own heritage. I see people becoming storytellers of their own culture. I see people through whatever medium, whether that's in writing, film, poetry, or even in entrepreneurship itself.
What do you want the special entrepreneurs to do?
If you call yourself an entrepreneur, that means you have been gifted with a responsibility to make change in society. It is not about money. Money will come, and money will come irregardless, because by you being successful, it means other people will be successful in time. So I strongly believe in the fact that if you're an entrepreneur, the vision should be bigger than you as a person. It is your responsibility to make sure that that gets to as big a scale as it can. And when you've exhausted that, responsibility, pass it on to someone else who will. You have to have that level of honesty within yourself, because that dream is not just for you. It's much bigger than you.
That's it for this episode of the Foundality Africa podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, subscribe and don't miss out when we upload new ones. Please also share and leave a review if you want others to know about Foundality. If you want to know more about us, or if you want to leave us a message, visit foundality.com. Also, if you know an outstanding African entrepreneur who you think could be a great guest, please let us know. We do post small snippets, learnings, and inspirations from the podcast on social media. You can find us under the name Foundality. Episodes will be uploaded weekly. See you then.
Wow, that was good time. I didn't mean to push anything on. Thank you. That's good.